I want to show you a video of Charlie talking about TPUSA.
Okay.
Well, you're about to embark on something that is much bigger than yourself. So check your ego at the door.
No, he looks so good. Sorry, guys. Just give me a second. It's the longest video I've watched of him. Just give me a second.
Charlie was on a mission to save Western civilization. Mm-hmm. Did you know that's what you signed up for?
You know, well, no, I didn't sign up for anything. I just married the love of my life.
Do you feel safe?
What are they going to threaten me with? Going to heaven sooner to be with my husband? And I don't say that to be reckless. I do not. I do not say that because I'm out in the streets like, here I am, come find me. And that's not at all. It's a fearlessness that's rooted in the understanding that I will have my day and my time, whenever that is. When the Lord knows that I've completed my mission. And I'm not afraid. Charlie wasn't afraid either. We never lived in fear. If we did, we wouldn't get anything done.
You told your children that Charlie was going on a work trip with Jesus. Are they still asking, where's Daddy?
Yes, my daughter continues to ask, but it's really sweet because I keep explaining to her a few things. And I said, if ever you want to talk to Daddy, you just look up to the sky and start talking to him. He can hear you. He's always in your heart. And I told her, I said, you know, Daddy is in heaven. She goes, do you think I could go sometime? I said, baby, we will all go one day. We will all go one day.
The defense wants to ban cameras in the courtroom. How do you feel about that?
There were cameras all over my husband when he was murdered. There have been cameras all over my friends and family mourning. There have been cameras all over me, analyzing my every move, analyzing my every smile, my every tear. We deserve to have cameras in there. Why not be transparent? There's nothing to hide. I know there's not, because I've seen what the case is built on. Let everyone see what true evil is. This is something that could impact a generation and generations to come.
The shocking death of Charlie Kirk had spawned a sprawling ecosystem of speculation, a digital storm of accusations, counter-accusations, and forensic scrutiny aimed at those closest to him. At the very center of this storm stood his widow, Erika Kirk, a figure whose preternatural composure and swift ascent to power had become the subject of intense and divisive public debate. For months, the narrative surrounding her had been defined by external voices, critics who saw calculation in her calm, defenders who saw strength in her stoicism. Then, she broke her silence. What emerged was not a simple rebuttal or an emotional breakdown, but something far more powerful and complex, the revelation of a profound and unshakable inner fortress built not on ambition, but on faith. Her testimony, delivered in a sunlit room with a terrifying serenity, reframed the entire conversation, presenting the world with a stark choice: to see a grieving widow guided by divine purpose, or to witness the most flawless performance of strategic genius ever conceived. The setting for this revelation was deliberately calm, a stark contrast to the chaotic digital arena where her character was being dissected. Seated for her first extended televised interview, Erika Kirk did not present as a woman broken by loss. Her grief was present, visible in the slight redness around her eyes and the careful, measured weight of her words, but it was subsumed by a quality that many viewers found either inspiring or deeply unsettling: an absolute, resolute calm. The interview began not with a discussion of the tragedy itself, but with a moment of quiet reflection. She was shown holding a smartphone, watching old footage of her husband. As the vibrant, energetic image of Charlie Kirk played on the screen, a single tear traced a path down her cheek, captured in the glass. It was a moment of profound humanity, yet it was followed not by a collapse, but by a steadying breath and a gaze that met the interviewer with unnerving directness. This set the tone for everything that followed. This was not a performance of grief. It was a demonstration of transcendence. She spoke of her husband's mission with the clarity of a historian and the fervor of an evangelist. In her telling, Charlie Kirk was not merely a political commentator or the leader of an organization. He was a modern-day architect engaged in a spiritual and cultural war for the very soul of Western civilization. Turning Point USA was not a nonprofit. It was a vessel for salvation, a bulwark against a rising tide of ideological decay. This framing was crucial. It elevated the succession from a simple transfer of corporate power to a sacred passing of the torch. Her assumption of the role of CEO and chair was not an act of ambition, but one of divine stewardship. She was not replacing Charlie. She was continuing his God-ordained work. When asked about the immense pressure and the very public scrutiny, her response was a quiet declaration of independence from worldly fear. "I refuse to live in fear of death or threats," she stated, her voice even and firm. "This world is temporary. My security, my future, is not in the hands of men with evil intentions, but in the hands of God." This statement, radiating a spiritual confidence that bordered on the invulnerable, became the cornerstone of her public identity. This bedrock faith was most poignantly revealed in her description of motherhood amidst tragedy. Explaining the unimaginable task of informing her children of their father's death, she shared the metaphor she used to provide them comfort and meaning. "I told them their father is on a work trip with Jesus," she said, a faint, sorrowful smile touching her lips. This was not a euphemism designed to soften a brutal reality. For her, it was a theological truth. It reframed a violent, public death as a divine reassignment, transforming loss into a mission of eternal significance. This perspective, while providing immense comfort to her family and resonating deeply with a faith-based audience, also created a chasm of understanding between her worldview and that of secular analysts. How does one investigate or question a narrative that exists on a spiritual plane? How can earthly evidence contradict a heavenly calling? The public and commentator reaction to this interview was immediately polarized, but along new fault lines. A significant portion of the audience, particularly within the conservative Christian community, found her testimony not just convincing, but profoundly moving. Commentators on religious networks and platforms praised her spiritual strength and biblical peace. They held her up as a modern-day example of the peace that passes all understanding, promised in Scripture. She was described as a Esther or a Deborah, a woman raised up for such a time as this, to lead a movement through a valley of shadow with unwavering faith. Her composure was no longer seen as cold, but as evidence of a soul anchored in eternity. This narrative was powerful and emotionally resonant, creating a shield of spiritual legitimacy that proved difficult for factual skepticism to penetrate. However, for skeptics and those outside this framework of belief, the interview raised as many questions as it answered. The very completeness of her spiritual armor, the seamless integration of personal tragedy into a pre-existing cosmic battle, struck some as psychologically incongruous. Could faith truly so completely override the natural, chaotic, and debilitating processes of human grief? Or was this the ultimate strategic maneuver, a brilliant co-opting of religious language to create an untouchable persona? The conversation online bifurcated. Supporters used phrases like saintly strength and faith over fear, sharing clips of her most spiritual quotes. Detractors, meanwhile, pondered the utility of such profound faith, wondering if it could be wielded as the perfect instrument of concealment, a place where no further questions could be asked because the answers existed in a realm beyond human verification. Then, Erika Kirk made a move that stunned the political and legal worlds, a demand that seemed to contradict the image of a woman detached from earthly concerns. She announced she would insist on full transparency in the upcoming murder trial. She demanded that cameras be allowed in the courtroom, arguing forcefully that the public deserved to see justice served and to look upon the face of evil openly. "The public needs to see this," she asserted, her tone shifting from serene to steely. They need to understand the reality of the evil that took Charlie from us. Hiding this process in the dark only helps those who want the truth to remain hidden. This call for radical transparency was a masterstroke. It completely reframed her relationship with the truth. She was no longer a subject of investigation, but its greatest champion. It put her on the side of the public and against any institutional forces that might prefer a quiet, closed process. Critics who had accused her of concealment were now faced with a woman demanding the ultimate level of public exposure for the legal proceedings. This demand cemented her transformation in the eyes of her supporters from a grieving widow into a courageous leader. Commentators and analysts, even some previously neutral, began to liken her to historical figures of profound strength and moral conviction. Comparisons were drawn to Rosa Parks, to Margaret Thatcher, to other women who had displayed unyielding courage in the face of immense pressure and personal cost. She was praised not just for her faith, but for her wisdom and grace under fire. The announcement that she would be honored with a prestigious Patriot Award for her resilience and leadership was the institutional seal of approval on this new narrative. She was being officially recognized not as a victim, but as a victor, a leader forged in the hottest of fires. Yet, the fundamental enigma of Erika Kirk remains. The world has been presented with two competing and perhaps irreconcilable interpretations. In one, she is exactly who she appears to be, a woman of profound, sustaining faith, whose spiritual convictions have given her the superhuman strength to not only endure a nightmare, but to lead a movement through it, all while demanding a level of transparency that terrifies the powerful. In this version, her calm is authentic, her mission is sacred, and her story is one of divine inspiration. In the other interpretation, her faith is the ultimate strategic asset. It is a narrative so powerful and emotionally compelling that it renders factual inquiry irrelevant and criticism blasphemous. Her call for transparency is a brilliant preemptive strike, a performance of openness designed to silence questions about her own actions by focusing all attention on the courtroom. Her composure is not the peace of God, but the discipline of a master strategist executing a long-planned succession. The truth lies hidden somewhere in the chasm between these two realities. Is Erika Kirk a modern-day prophet, leading through a testimony of suffering and faith? Or is she the most sophisticated public figure of the digital age, having weaponized spirituality itself to consolidate power and insulate herself from scrutiny? Her interview did not provide a definitive answer. Instead, it presented the world with a riddle wrapped in a mystery, inside an unshakable fortress of faith. The public is left to wonder, to watch, and to decide which version of Erika Kirk they believe in as the real-life drama of justice, power, and belief continues to unfold.